Today we will be exploring exponential functions, and we will do that by comparing them to linear functions. So we start with an example as it happened in New York, in Yonkers, and I invite you to stop the video and actually read through it. We will focus right away at the very end, where the city of Yonkers basically was charged and found guilty in racially discriminating in education and public housing, and was fined the following way. So the city's fine started at $100 and it would double every day. Now, the councilmen were charged separately, and their fine started at $500 and increased by $500 each day. Now, we're gonna take a look what that does and how much they over time get fined, and we will look at the formulas how that comes about. So let's start with the councilmen. On day 1 they are charged $500. Now on day 2 then they will be charged $500 more, so that makes $1,000. And so from here I'll fill in the rest of the table, and I invite you to do the same by adding every day $500. So we found basically by adding $500 every day, how much the councilman get charged every day. Now, if we wanted to write that in a formula so that we would also know how much they're getting charged on day t, any given day, and we'll have to think about what we're actually doing. So on the first day, right, it's just our $500. Now on day 1 we added another $500. So we took our original $500 and there we added another $500, but only once, because on the next day then we had again our original $500 and we added yet another $500. That means altogether we added 2 times $500. And you start seeing the way the formula goes for each day. So times 1 on day 1, times 2 on day 2. So on day t, that will be 500 plus 500 times t. Now, I invite you to take a moment and fill in the formula for day 3, 4, and 5 to kind of get an experience of what that will look like. Now, so those were the councilmen. Now, how does that look for the city of Yonkers? So there we start with $100. Now, on the first day that the city doesn't do what it was supposed to do, the court said it had to do. Now they're getting doubled the fine that they were asked to pay. So that means that becomes $200. And then the next day it doubles again. And so we end up already at $400. And then if we double that again, $800. And you see how suddenly the increase is a lot steeper as time goes on. And so we are already on day 5, end up at $3,200. So again, we want to think about what are we actually doing here. So we start with our original $100. Now on the second day, so our day 1, where they actually didn't do what they were supposed to do, we multiply by 2. Now the day after, we are again taking our $100 and now we're multiplying by 4. However, I'm going to write the 4 as a 2 squared, and you'll soon see why, because if I keep going keep doing that, we are going up in our exponents, and hence we will call them exponential function, because what changes is the exponent in this case. So we are now at 2 to the 4th power, which is 16, right? It's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And then on our last, not the last day yet, the city took a lot longer to find out that this is not a good idea to keep paying like this. But to the so 2 to the 5th power, and I think you probably have already by now figured out what our general formula will be, which is $100 times 2 to the t's power. So that is kind of how the fine develops. Now we're going to take a look and make a graphical representation of what that will look like on a graph. The x-axis is the time t in days, and then the y-axis, vertical axis, is the fine p in dollars. And so I invite you to make a graph from all the values we have just found, and then we will discuss what we are seeing. So here now we have our two graphs. Now if we look at them, what do we notice? So on the left side, for the councilman's fine, we have a line, right? And on the right side, we have now an exponential function. So this is how they look like. And the difference is that on the left side, basically each time, each day, we go up always the same amount. And so each day we go up $500 and then over one day, right? So that's our slope, our rise over run. It's $500 up every single day. Now that looks very different on the city of Yonkers, where every day we have a different amount the fine goes up, but it's by the same factor. So each time it doubles. So each day we multiply by yet another 2. And so those are the different characteristics that we are having. And so therefore our functions end up being a linear function versus an exponential function. So to summarize one more time, the linear function increases by a constant amount every time, while the exponential function increases by a constant factor. So therefore, in each case, we start with a certain amount, but then we are adding a certain amount every time, so our plus 500 times t, while we multiply by a certain amount, by a certain factor every time, that is our times 2, and then to the t's power. The other thing I want to point out here is that our t is in the exponent, so we have not had that until now. It's always on the base, but so we have, for instance, t squared, but in this case now the t is in the exponent. So that is something new we will now then discover over the next couple weeks and see what that does. Now let's see how that looks on for instance, after 1 month. What will actually happen to our councilman and city of Yonkers if for 1 month they choose not to follow the court order? Let's start with the councilman. We start with our formula, y equals 500 plus 500 times how many days have passed. So on day 30 now, that will be times 30. And if you're welcome to use the calculator for that, if you plug that in, you will get 15,500. So we always want to write then an answer sentence. So on day 30, the councilman will be fined $15,500. Don't forget your units. Now in the same way, we we'll find the fine for the city of Yonkers. We again start with our formula, which is 100 times 2 to the and now 30th power. And if you plug that into the calculator, you get a very long number. 107,374,182,400. So that's a lot of money. So again, we want to write that in an answer sentence that the fine after 30 days for the city of Yonkers will be that amount of money. So let's write that out. So let's think about that for a moment. After 30 days, so that's just 1 month where they keep not doing what they're supposed to do, they're suddenly charged the city $107 billion. That is huge, and so that is a lot of money for a country, for a city that is not possible to pay. And it also means that the day before they paid half of that already, right? So this is every day just P for just, or the penalty for just 1 day. And so needless to say that I think about after half a month, the city then started doing what they were supposed to do, because it is just not possible to keep paying that amount of fine. So that is the power of exponential functions, that they're increasing incredibly fast. So they start slower, as you see on the graph up there, but once they get going, they increase very, very fast